What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to TTP Sports, and you can ring the bells, sound the alarms, and sing hallelujah because Matt Klentak has stepped down as the Philadelphia Phillies general manager. And I waited a day. I know this happened yesterday during the afternoon. I wanted to wait a little bit just to let the news settle so I can see what's actually going on, process the information, process what Middleton said about the whole process about everything that happened yesterday, and everything that it can also tie into JT Realmuto as well. It's a lot of interesting stuff right here. So, like I said, Matt Klentak, as we all know, stepped down as the Phillies general manager yesterday, and he's going to be given another job within the organization. Didn't really specify what the job and the role is going to entail for him, but hopefully it's away from baseball decisions. Hopefully it's away from stuff like that because Matt Klentak is just not a good decision maker. So hopefully he is away from all of that, which would be very nice. But also the very questioning thing as well is that Andy MacPhail is still the Phillies president. It still boggles my mind right there. Because I feel like the whole situation with Klentak, Middleton, of course, he definitely had to step in at this point just because of everything that's going on right now. But I feel like Middleton gave Klentak a choice, basically saying, if you step down, we'll give you another job in the organization. Or if you don't want that, you'll be fired because you're not going to be the Phillies general manager next season and this offseason. So I feel like Klentak, he decided to step down, takes the other role. But then there's also rumors with Andy MacPhail that I think this is maybe the last year going into this season of his contract that Middleton did extend him to. And there's rumors circling around that maybe he retires after this contract expires, and maybe that's what went into that decision making right there for John Middleton, which is still a little bit alarming right there because you fire one half of the Stooges right there, but you still keep one around. Even though MacPhail, I feel like he has no say in everything whatsoever. He's just basically a guy that stands there and says, "Hey, I'm the Phillies president. I do things at this point." But I feel like John Middleton, he does more of the decision making right here between that little trio of them, Klentak and MacPhail. But you lose Klentak. Now Ned Rice steps in as your interim general manager, as the Phillies probably go into the search process of finding another general manager for the foreseeable future. And I feel like for the Phillies at this point, they're going to go the same route as they did with the manager. Okay, you had Gabe Kapler for the past 2 seasons, didn't have any success under him. Go with an experienced guy in Joe Girardi, let him hold the team for the foreseeable future. I feel like that's what they're going to go with the GM route again. They're going to find someone that is experienced, that has a good track record of drafting well, a good track record of knowing how to build a damn team, which would be nice. So I feel like they're going to go down that route, more of an experienced type of guy, more of a veteran type of general manager, just to help this team out more. And it's a lot of things that John Middleton said in the press conference after the whole announcement that Klentak did step down. There was a lot of interesting details right there. So I'm going to read some quotes from this article right here. So this was the first quote that Middleton said that stood out to me. So he believes that the Phillies have made progress, but we haven't made enough progress fast enough. So everything that ties into last season, Bryce Harper signing, you trade for JT Realmuto, and you feel like the Phillies are on the right track into getting back into contention right now. But then your first season with Bryce Harper and JT Realmuto, you go below 500, you don't make the playoffs, you go for that late season collapse once again. And then you go into this season, you feel like the Phillies, are they going to be able to compete? Even though it's a shortened season, can they make the playoffs even with an expanded postseason type of thing? And they fall once again below 500, and the bullpen is one of the worst bullpens assembled in Major League history. And now Matt Klentak's out of a job, and the Phillies have had, 9 consecutive seasons of a losing record, not being able to have a winning season for the past 9 years. Yeah, it's a little bit of a problem maker right there. You brought in Joe Girardi. And I'm not going to say it's Joe Girardi's fault. There were some questionable decisions that he's made throughout the season, but it wasn't entirely his fault. He had to play the cards he was dealt, mainly the bullpen right there. And the bullpen, like I said, was one of the worst bullpens assembled in Major League Baseball history. So, a little bit of question marks right there, and there were rumors going towards the end of the season that Matt Klentak would have been fired if the Phillies don't make the playoffs, or if they were to make the wild card round, if they can't pass that, he would have been fired regardless. So it ends up he steps down, and now we're in this entire process right here. But he feels like the Phillies right now, they're making progress, but they're not doing it fast enough. And that also ties into the whole situation with a JT Realmuto contract extension, and also the lack of ability to develop prospects and draft properly at the same time. And there's other quotes in this article that stand out from John Middleton talking about just what the problems are here right now. And this goes into the whole reason with the Phillies having trouble developing talent, specifically in the minor league pool, because we have no prospect system. We have no up-and-coming guys right now. Maybe there's a few key pieces that we've drafted in the past few recent years. Alec Boehm, he's a guy that you're definitely going to build on. He looks like a stud right now. And you got some of the guys that you drafted in years previous. You got Stott that you drafted in the first round last season. And some of the guys that maybe they could be something, the guys that you drafted this year, Appel that you drafted in the first round, some of the guys that you drafted in the second, third, and fifth round, maybe they're guys that you look at. But then the question that still comes into, can the Phillies properly develop these guys and produce major league level talent at this point? And this goes right into this quote that Middleton said right here. So he's basically talking about the Phillies' entire history and the lack of ability for them to develop talent. So he says, I think the Phillies' problem has been for the past 100 years is that they don't evaluate talent well. So this also ties into the whole situation with the JT Realmuto trade at the same time. That's the problem right here. So he basically went on to a ramble between the only really good times when the Phillies learned how to develop talent and brought up actual major league level players and they actually competed was during the years when the Phillies won both of their World Series back in the 80s and in 2008 when they assembled that team that went on to win the NL East 5 years in a row. Those were really the only periods of time in Phillies history where they actually developed talent well and they actually knew how to draft players. And he says that's a problem that's haunted us our entire history. It was the number one mandate I gave Andy MacPhail and Matt Klentak when they came into to this team, and we were better than we were, but we're not nearly good enough. So he's basically going into right now, like I said, the Phillies' problem their entire history of not being able to develop talent, not being able to recognize talent, and not trusting in those players that you believe to have enough talent. And he tied this into the JT Realmuto trade for the Miami Marlins, which sent them Sixto Sanchez, because this ties into the entire thing about right now, because you have the Miami Marlins. They're now in the NLDS. They swept the Cubs in the wild card series. And you saw in their clinching game Sixto Sanchez pitching very well. And then you also got another division rival in the Atlanta Braves, who developed one of the best lineups in baseball. Even though their pitching right now is a question mark, they're still they are the best team in the National League East. And they're a rival in your division. You're going to be competing with that team for years upon years at this point. So they developed a great team. The Marlins, look at what they're doing right here. You gave them a key piece in Sixto Sanchez, who's probably going to be one of the best pitchers in the near future. Definitely probably a top 5 at this point. He's Pedro Martinez 2.0 for crying out loud. And basically, there was a whole comparison too right here. There was a video on MLB on Twitter, like doing a side-by-side comparison of Pedro Martinez and Sixto Sanchez. And also a side-by-side comparison of Dontrelle Willis and Sixto Sanchez at the same time. Because Sixto Sanchez is the youngest Marlins pitcher to pitch a clinching game since Dontrelle Willis back in, I think, 2003 for the Marlins or something like that. So, and he went into the situation about the JT Realmuto trade at the same time. So, he was basically talking about he was going to accept the trade because he heard from his baseball people that they were able to re-sign a guy like JT Realmuto and give him a contract extension. So, that's the one problem right there that I see. It's one of the major problems because at first he didn't want to sign a guy like JT Realmuto because he needed to know, basically needed to know that he could sign a guy like JT with the risk of giving up a top prospect like Sixto Sanchez. He only approved the deal because he had people around him that said, "Oh, we can sign JT Realmuto to a contract extension. If we give up Sixto for JT, we are confident that we can re-sign JT to an extension." And that's why John Middleton gave the approval to pull the trigger on that trade. He wouldn't have made that trade if the people around him didn't convince him that they could sign JT to a contract extension. So that's the problem right there. He says he doesn't hold it mainly against Klentak, mainly the baseball people around him, and that's one of the other problems right here. Who are these baseball people in the team that convinced John Middleton of that right there? Because that goes into his quote saying we don't recognize talent enough. Because look at what Sixto Sanchez is doing right now with Miami. And granted, the entire situation that we're in right now, no one could have guessed that at the beginning of the season, we were going to go through this entire thing with COVID, and it destroyed the majority of Major League Baseball's season, and we would turn into a 60-game shortened season. And during spring training, they weren't having contract talks with JT Realmuto, but during the whole process of the COVID situation, those talks seemed to stop. Those talks were not going anywhere. You heard stuff from JT. You heard stuff from Bryce Harper consistently shouting at the front office throughout media to re-sign JT Realmuto. And he has expressed his opinion very recently in a lot, especially in their post-game press conferences in their last game against Tampa Bay. Bryce Harper wants JT Realmuto on the Philadelphia Phillies. I mean, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't want a guy like JT on your team? But it's going into a weird problem right now because, as we all know right now, during the press conference, it was definitely hinted at JT Realmuto is definitely going to test the free agency market at this point, and John Middleton is not confident enough right now with the whole situation going on that they can re-sign JT to a contract that both sides of the parties can agree to right here. And he was basically just talking about the whole problem with the revenues issue right now with Major League Baseball. And this quote goes to right here, talking about the mayor of Philadelphia, the governor, just because of we still right now can't have fans in the stands. So basically, this is what he goes off on right here. So can you tell me what the governor and the mayor of Philadelphia are going to allow us to have next year in the way of fans? Because if you do, you know something that I don't. I have no idea what we're going to be allowed, and obviously that's going to be determined by the revenues, and the revenue determines what you can do and what you cannot do. So that's going to go into the factor of trying to sign a guy like JT Realmuto. It's a very gigantic question mark right now, because now JT most likely is going to test free agency. Who knows with firing of Klentak right now, maybe this Ned Rice guy can find a way to negotiate with JT. Most likely Middleton is definitely going to step into these negotiations. He's definitely going to try to. Right now it's a 50-50 split at this point. He's either going to come back to the Phillies or he's going to go sign somewhere else in free agency. Most likely the teams that were heavily in the rumors right now are definitely a team like the New York Mets, a team like the New York Yankees. One of those teams that are looking for a guy, one of those big contending teams that can definitely compete for a World Series. The Yankees, the Mets. At this point, even though the Mets, we all know their whole situation at this point, they want JT Realmuto. Maybe a team like the Los Angeles Dodgers, maybe they take a crack at signing JT because they spend literally all the money in the world. There are definitely teams out there that can use a JT Realmuto. He's one of the best catchers in baseball for a reason, and he's going to get paid like it. He's definitely going to get paid that $100+ million a season. Not $100+ million a season, but he's going to get paid that $100+ million contract. And that's something that the best catcher in baseball, he's going to get. And right now with the whole situation that, with the revenues and all that crap, that Middleton is worried that they can't re-sign JT Realmuto, the one thing that bothers me, John Middleton is a billionaire. He's a billionaire upon billionaires. He's made his money. And he's worried about revenues right now, and the fact that he's afraid that they can't sign him because they're, losing money? This man is worth billions of dollars. I feel like you can lose a little bit of a sum right there to re-sign one of your best players. One of the best players in baseball. I think you can risk losing some money to bring a guy like JT back. I understand there's a lot of other holes in the organization to fill. There's definitely a lot of question marks and results to revenue because we have no idea what's going to happen next season in terms of fans, even if that's even going to be possible at this point, because who knows what's going to happen in the ongoing future with COVID at this point. Definitely there's going to be that point where fans do eventually come back into the stands, but the question is when. And there's definitely a lot of months going on right here to figure that thing out for Major League Baseball, but they also got a lot of other problems to deal with right now with the whole CBA negotiation rights thing with the Players Association and the league itself with the owners. That's a whole problem in itself. But I just don't get the process that a man that's worth billions of dollars cannot sign JT Realmuto, or he's afraid to re-sign JT Realmuto to the money that he wants because he's afraid he's going to lose more money at this point. Well, you got to take risks. You got to take risks if you want to be competitive. You want to remain competitive and try the hell to make the playoffs. I think JT Realmuto is definitely a guy that can help. Definitely. But then there's also a different side of the table right here. If you don't re-sign a guy like JT Realmuto and you focus to the other needs of the team right now, because there's definitely a lot of other holes besides catcher that the Phillies need to focus on at this point. Didi Gregorius, his contract expired, so do you re-sign Didi, or do you look in another direction for a shortstop? Your second base point at this, your second baseman. Do you go with a guy like still with Gene Segura? Do you go with a Scott Kingery? Do you go in another direction? Do you maybe trade a guy like Segura? Do you trade a guy like a Kingery to find another second baseman? And also in center field at the same time. Do you try to fill in a guy like an Adam Hazley full-time in center field? Do you put maybe a platoon situation between Kingery and Hazley too? That's a big question mark right there. Also, left field. There can also be a possibility right here. There's also situations with the bench. We need some guys to fill at the bench as well. And the whole thing with Rhys Hoskins too. Is Alec Bohm going to play third base? Is Rhys Hoskins going to be a full-time first baseman? Or if the DH does come back next season, does Rhys go to DH full-time, Alec Bohm plays first base? And then you're looking at a hole right there at third base at the same time. And also the whole situation with the bullpen. You got to fix that damn thing. Yeah, bullpen, you can find a way to build from within. A bullpen can be built from within, but the Phillies have no up-and-coming prospects right now that can help fill out that bullpen. Brogdon, interesting piece. He was lights out going towards the end of the year. Yeah, he's definitely something to build around in that bullpen. Same thing with a guy like Jojo Romero. He was very hot when he came into the start, when he was called up, but then he started to cool off. Still a very intriguing piece at that point. So those are definitely two guys you can work around with that bullpen, but you got to find a way to build around them. You're definitely going to have to look out in the free agency market, definitely in the trade market as well, to find a way to build this bullpen better. You just gotta. They just have to. And who knows how long this search for another GM is going to take. We have a lot of months going on here, so it's going to be a process at this point. Another process with the damn Phillies. It's been so long for this team since they've been competitive. So long. And they fooled us last year with bringing in Harper, bringing in a guy like JT, McCutchen, all that stuff. And they fooled us. And they went on that late season collapse. And they were trying to fool us once again this year with that 10 out of 11 consecutive games won. And they went on that collapse in September once again. And they just proved they weren't a good enough team in that bullpen. That bullpen just frustrated the hell out of the entire fan base. It's going to be interesting at this point what the Phillies do. Very, very interesting. Do they attack free agency in a different way? Do they attack the trade market? How hard are they going to try to attack to bring back a guy like JT? At this point, like I said, I feel like it's 50-50. I would say maybe even more, maybe like a 75-25%. The 25% going to him re-signing with the Phillies. I would say he's more willing to test the free agency market. Maybe I feel like it's a higher possibility that he signs with another team. I just don't have confidence in the Phillies re-signing JT Realmuto. Just with these comments right here from Middleton, and he's more worried about losing money at this point with the revenues and all that crap. I feel like they don't have the chances of signing this guy to the money that he wants. And definitely it's going to be difficult in the free agency market for this year. There's definitely probably going to be some guys that don't get the money they expect just because of the whole situation with COVID right now. But JT's definitely going to get paid. And are the Phillies going to try and go all out and try to get him? Are they that confident enough? Are they willing to spend that money? Because what Middleton said a couple of years ago before they signed Harper, they were going to go spend money stupidly. It's becoming a bit of a lie right there, because this guy's kind of afraid to go over the luxury tax. He says he was willing to spend the money to go over the luxury tax, and he hasn't. He has not. He has not let Klentak spend money to go over the luxury tax. He just, right now, Middleton's playing afraid at this point. He's afraid of losing money, which is kind of a problem at the same time. So, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. So it's going to be an interesting offseason, definitely, for this team. I'm just basically just going to play it as it goes. I'm not going to be overly frustrated with this team because at this point I just expect what they do because it's the Phillies. It's like what Middleton said. They don't know how to realize talent. They don't know how to develop it. But hopefully they can bring in a guy for GM that can hopefully change a little bit of the organization and the way it's built. Just hopefully. Because we haven't seen competitive baseball in years. And we're basically deprived of it at this point. We're very deprived of it. And it is getting frustrating, it is. But at this point with this team, I need to see it in order to believe it. Like, they can't just keep throwing during the offseason, oh, the Phillies are going to be a competitive team. Oh, the Phillies are going to do this, they're going to do that. I need to see it in order to believe it. I need to see them, if they do hire a GM, I need to see them make moves, make the important decisions, and bring in guys that can actually help this club. It's going to be a long process during this offseason. It's going to be a very long offseason with the way this team has to make the harsh decisions right here. They got to make difficult ones. They definitely do. And it's going to be interesting. Going to be very, very interesting. So, what are your thoughts on Matt Klentak stepping down? What are your thoughts on what the Phillies have to do this entire offseason? What are your thoughts on Middleton's comments? And what do you just think this team has to do? Because it's going to be very difficult at this point. So I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. So don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section. Don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And I will see you next time.